All right, so we ready? We're good? So finally, we've gotten our frequency. So now you have the last column available, which is about our energy. Okay. So looking at this page again, okay, we have another formula that was over here, and I think you guys might have already wrote stuff in here. But it doesn't hurt to go over it still. So E, the capital E is standing for energy, and that's going to be measured in joules, or it's going to be reported in joules, just a capital J. Okay. H, if you look at your periodic table, has Planck's constant or Planck, Max Planck. All right. And that number is going to be 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34. So comparing this one to our speed of light, this is a tiny number because it's talking about quanta of energy, right? So these little itty bitty packets of energy is basically what his whole thing was about. All right, so 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34. So we know already that when we go to type it into our calculator, and I think this might have been one that we wrote at the top, was 6.63 E negative 34. Okay? All right. And then F is still going to be frequency. So it's still the same thing. Nothing's changing about that one. So unit for energy, joules. All right, cool. So now that we know that, this formula, most of the time, you're just going to be solving for energy. So there's not really a point in rearranging it unless I give you energy and you have to calculate for frequency, okay? So I don't mind if you see the triangle for it, but just know that it's going to be energy on top, H right here, and frequency right here. Okay, but luckily for this lab, we're solving for energy, so we're covering up the E. We're left with H times F. Okay, so this is our last calculation on our data tables. So the third step after you've gotten a frequency is you're going to calculate energy. Okay, now one thing that we did talk about when we did the lab, was I asked you a question about, is the blue flame hotter or colder than your orange flame? Do you guys remember that? And you guys told me hotter, right? So blue flames are hotter than the orange flames. So that's another way that in the past you've probably actually quantified looking at a color, right? And that's exactly what this energy thing is. You can kind of put it with that. It's not exactly always going to be related to that temperature, but it's something that you can definitely hold on to, is that your blue flame would have a higher energy value than your orange flame, okay? All right, so back to the calculation part. So we know that this is coming from E is equal to HF, right? So we're going to be doing energy is equal to Planck's constant, 6.63 E negative 34. And remember, that is 6.63 times 10 to the negative 34. So if you are working on Desmos calculator, that one you're better off just typing it in. That's what I saw. All right. If you're using my calculator, we're going to be trying to use E. If you're using Google Calculator, I recommend using the E, which is the exponent thing that I had pulled up. There you go. So it's this EXP button if you're using the Google Calculator. Okay. All right. So I'm going to have Planck's constant, and I'm going to multiply this by my frequency from the last column, right? So my frequency ended up being 5.22 E14, right? So when I go to plug it in, I'm plugging it in just like this, right? So 6.63, do that little second EE thing, and a negative. Make sure you're hitting the negative for that, okay? So when I type that in, I'm going to get my energy value, and then that should be the last thing. So I will use Google Calculator for this one just to kind of show that, just in case you're taking some of these calculations home. You'll have a little video that has that, all right? So let me think how I'm going to do this. Hold on. Let's scroll down. Perfect. And I think we're good. All right. So we'll put this up here. All right. So when I go to type this in, I'm going to go ahead and say 6.63. Sorry. I guess I should clear out my calculator. All right. So I have 6.63. And then I have E negative 34. So I'm going to go ahead and hit exponent. And then that negative 34. So on Google Calculator, you don't have to worry about the negative being different, right? It's just a minus sign. So E negative 34. And I'm going to go ahead and multiply that by 5.22 exponent 14. And that is the answer that I get. So I get 3.46 times 10 to the negative 19 was my final answer. Okay? Yeah, so I'm going to have well, that's what I'm rounding, 3.46. So go to the second decimal. And then times 10 to the negative 19. So in my data table, I'll have 3.46 E negative 19. Okay? Also, if you're feeling like your data table is way too small, you are more than welcome to write it. You're more than welcome to handwrite it. But as long as you're showing your work, you kind of have them listed there too. So, all right. So I'm going to put that into my data table. And that way I am done with this whole row. Okay. All right. So what you should be seeing is that if this number is smaller, this number should be bigger. So we should be looking at if wavelength is a smaller number, energy should be a bigger number, just like frequency was. Okay, so we have that inverse relationship between those things. And everything got calculated with wavelength, which is the colors that we saw. All right, so big point of the lab. You saw qualitative data, right? You took colors down. You quantified it, which is really cool. You guys should be really proud of yourselves. All right? Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and that